but he said, eat the meat and spit out the bones. So when you get some wisdom or some advice, take what you can from it, what you know you can apply, and just get rid of the rest. You don't have to take everything for what it's worth. So everything that I say, some of the things you may disagree with, or be like, oh, I already know that. But there might be one thing that you hear that like, oh, I needed to hear that today. I'm going to apply that right now. And that's really all it's about.
Hello and welcome to a new segment that we're going to be doing here at Faith. We're going to be doing some interviews, interviewing some of the church members, just kind of a getting to know you segment. My first interview was with Jake Treloar about his new podcast. It's called Shepherds and Kings. And I just got to know Jake a little bit more, asked him about a little bit about his childhood, growing up, college, and then a little bit about his ministry life. It was a very interesting interview, and hopefully you enjoy it. So here it is. So Jake, let's learn a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I went to school for music education, which is, a combination of learning about music theory, but then also education in the classroom, and so a lot of both of those classes combined. Okay. A little bit of private lessons mixed in there, that kind of stuff.
You are married, correct?
I am. I've been married for 8 years. I met my wife in college, actually through. I went on tour, traveled for a college, and we went to a camp. And I met her brother and her parents before I met her, which was kind of unique. And they kind of introduced us, and she was going to college somewhere else, ended up transferring to my school, and the rest is history, as they say.
And then when you graduated college, did you come right on staff like that summer?
No, I came here actually in, we got married in 2011. And I came here that summer, after we got married, and I worked a job driving forklift, road runner, locally here, and did that for about a year. And then the following summer, was hired to work in the school as administrator.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay. What was your involvement with the music ministry at that time?
Really just kind of basic. We'd already started a choir at that point, but I believe I started playing for the choir pretty early on in there, and then just an involvement in a group or two, and just kind of being put into the regular music schedule rotation, offertories, that kind of stuff.
And then, because a lot of people know that you're part of the Faithmen too, right? When did that start?
That started actually when I was in high school.
So that's going way back.
Yeah. I think I was about 15. So I'm 31 now. We've been singing together for about 16 years.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's been great. And so that I kind of took a break while I was in college. I sang when I could, and I recorded this few CDs we made there. But Jeremy Peters sang bass when the quartet would travel while I was gone there.
That's right.
So that started 15, 16 years ago at this point.
Yeah. And so right now, obviously, you're not the administrator anymore. What is your official job title right now?
My official job title, I guess, is pastor's assistant. Okay. Which I tell people means I do anything and everything. I've done everything from help decorate the place to help run events and have my hands in just about everything. In addition to that, I do organize the music. So planning special group singing, the music schedule, which means congregationals that we sing, the special events. This last Christmas, I wrote the words and the music to our cantata, but then also trying to start new groups. We started an orchestra, things like that.
Okay. And so you are the music director as well. You're in charge of all that. Okay. Now I know we're here to talk about your podcast, so tell us about that a little bit.
Sure. Well, like I said, I have a 5-year-old son, and he, 2015, of course, he was born, and I very quickly realized I didn't know much about parenting. And that's not due to my parents or anything. I had great parents, had a great family, grew up in a great church with great examples. And I talked about the quartet. I was able to hang around with some older men and just great examples, and showed me a lot of what to do. But I didn't have a lot of training or what I would call specific knowledge. So I went online and I looked up books about raising a boy. And I found a book called Making Men by Chuck Holton. And I ordered it, read it, I really enjoyed it. And in the back, he had a list of other recommended books. So I bought a few of those and kept reading, and that led me to a few more books, and so on and so forth. And that led me to a couple podcasts and YouTube channels and other things that I just learned about being a man, being a father, those kind of things. And so I was learning all this stuff, and God put it on my heart to start a podcast and to try to give some of the things that I've learned to other men. And that doesn't mean in any way that I'm a source of all wisdom. I'm not the source of any wisdom. It's just there's a couple practical things that I feel like could be passed along. And if for no other reason than my son can listen to these episodes when he's a little bit older and learn something, then it'll be worth it.
Was there something that happened that, it's probably something you've been thinking about for a long time. So was there anything that sparked I'm going to start right now? Was there anything that happened? Was it something big, or was it just something
Sure. There really wasn't, actually. It's something I had thought about probably for a year. And so I just put out the first episode in March 2020. But I had been thinking about it for 9 months to a year before that.
So do you think your podcast would be more focused on people your age or young adults, or is it for obviously men?
Yeah,
but what really age group would you say?
Honestly, anyone who's willing to learn. I think there are a lot of things that would be geared towards people younger than me. We tend to learn from people that are older than us. But given the fact that I'm 31, again, I don't, that category is a lot smaller. But if there are older men who are willing to learn and hear something new, a lot of times, as guys, we sometimes it takes us hearing something over and over again. Even as Christians, we have to hear the same thing several times or in a new way for us to really get it. And that's really all this is. All the topics that we've talked about and that we will talk about, all the guests that I've had and will have, it's just hearing something in a new way is really all it is. So it's not geared towards any age, really. I think that anybody could learn from that, and there probably will be some topics and things in the future that even maybe a mom could learn about dealing with her son, or a wife could maybe listen to and say, hey, this will help me understand my husband a little bit.
And then what are some of the topics?
Sure.
What are some of the topics that you have?
So for now, we've only put a couple episodes out, but really just very specific topics on looking at yourself as a man and the things that you need to do to grow. I think just this morning we put out an episode about about honesty and being honest with yourself and looking at yourself in the face and saying, here's what I need to fix. It's a RU principle, or any kind of principle of growth. You need to know what is wrong before you can fix it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Some of the other things that I plan on talking about down the road are intentionality, living on purpose, making decisions on purpose. Here's how I'm going to raise my kid, and here's why I'm going to do it. Not just floating along with any kind of popular thing, but here's the very specific things I'm going to do. Or the importance of church as a man, or a couple things about the show itself is about balance. And so down the road, we're going to talk about the opposite sides of some things, work and rest, or living with sort of an abandon and living carefully, some of those kind of topics that you will see the both sides of those issues.
Okay, so very practical thing, especially for nowadays, like you said, with the whole, just floating through life without any purpose and direction. That's obviously something that, especially men and young men are missing a lot today. So I think that would definitely be
And I think too that, the goal is for it to be practical. There are a lot of philosophical books out there for men. There's a lot of doctrinal books out there for men, and there are a lot of good practical ones as well. But my goal is for practical help. I'm not a theologian. I'm not a philosopher. So
for sure,
that's where I'm at. Is just some really practical things that will help on a day-to-day basis. And I think too that some of the guests I'd like to have on down the road. We'll see what happens, but. There'll be some Christian men, obviously, but there might be someone who's not a Christian, but will have some practical advice that we can translate into being a good Christian man or a good Christian father. One of the best pieces of advice I ever got was from Brother Calvin Allen, and he said, and I don't know if it was original to him or not, but he said, eat the meat and spit out the bones. So when you get some wisdom or some advice, take what you can from what you know you can apply, and just get rid of the rest. You don't have to take everything for what it's worth. So everything that I say, some of the things you may disagree with, or be like, oh, I already know that. But there might be one thing that you hear that like, oh, I needed to hear that today. I'm going to apply that right now. And that's really all it's about.
Awesome. And so, really quick, just where can people find your podcast, and under what's it called?
The title is Shepherds and Kings, and it's based off of the life of David, how David was a lot of things. And he wasn't necessarily, a shepherd at the same time he was a king, but I imagine he took what he learned as a shepherd and used that to be the best king that he could be. But he was also, a warrior. He was also a poet, and he filled all of those roles and did all of them well. So the goal is, no matter what you are, to do that well. You know what? You may be a leader in your field, and you may be just a worker, but whatever God has called you to be, or whatever you are, to do that well, to grow in that area. You may not ever be a millionaire. You may not ever be a sports star or a successful businessman or whatever, but ultimately, if you are the best man or the best father or Christian, really, that you can be, that's all it is. And so that's the goal, Shepherds and Kings. You can find it on Apple Podcasts. You can find it on Spotify, Google Play. The platform it's put out is through Spreaker. You can find that online. Spreaker.com is kind of a little bit of a weird word, but you can find it online there. And really, any podcast player that supports Apple, you can find it there. And then we do also have a Facebook page and just started an Instagram page. So.
Okay.